Yn ni'n mynd I fynd I gwrdd â Helena Anderson nawr. Mae Helena wrth I wneud doethuriaeth yma yn yr amgueddfa. Ac ar gyfer I doethuriaeth, mae Helena wedi bod yn astudio Gwen John a'i gwaith. Mae hwn yn gyfle arbennig I Helena I rannu gyda ni yr hyn mae hi wedi dysgu am Gwen John. A dwi'n rili edrych ymlaen I weld beth sydd ganddi I ddweud wrthyn ni. A dwi'n rili gyffrous I glywed mwy am ei gwaith ymchwil hi a beth mae hi am ddysgu ni heddi. Helena, what are we looking at in front of us here?
So here's a selection of watercolors and drawings that Gwen John made of her cats.
As a cat lover, it's great to see these in front of me. They're so different though, they're so varied.
Yeah, definitely. It's part of why this is such an interesting selection, because cats were a motif that she returned to throughout her life and throughout her career. And you can see her using different media and trying out different techniques, but on the same subject of cats. So this one, for example, that has very light pencil drawing underneath, and then it's been washed in a very wet watercolor. Whereas this one, the watercolor pigment is much more saturated, and she's added in a little bit of opaque white to put in little highlights for the white specks of fur in the middle of this tortoiseshell cat. These ones are probably works that were done when the cat's moving. So,
yeah, they're definitely like action shots, aren't they?
Absolutely, exactly. They're like sort of going to a life drawing class where the model's moving every few seconds. And I think that's part of the challenge that she enjoyed, and maybe one of the reasons she kept returning to cats as a subject matter is because they're really interesting. They move a lot. They're models who don't always cooperate, right? But then she, I think, is so familiar with cats as a subject. You know, she had multiple cats over her lifetime. She clearly had a lot of affection for them, that she captures these gestures, these facial expressions, little nuances about their fur that are just so typical and I think instantly recognizable to any cat lover.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this looks exactly like my cat having a strop when I've said, like, no, you've had enough food now. She really brings the characters to life, doesn't she?
Yeah, definitely. You can see that one's feeling a bit prickly, just the way that the fur, the way she's done the fur lined up and its ears stood up like it's a bit tense. Whereas this cat is just a perfect loaf, right? But it's not sort of, even in spite of that, it's not really a sentimental picture, I think. She's using the cat as for a formal experiment here. You've got this really strong grey outline done in just two short brush strokes, and then she's contrasted that really interestingly with the green wash to sort of make the cat as a form stand out from the background.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you say, it's really interesting to see the difference between these two, because these are works where the cat is sitting, maybe, as you say, like some of them are a bit tense, but on the whole they're relaxed, they're sort of asleep or you know, having a rest, whereas these are very much kind of in movement there. And I can imagine that would be quite a difficult thing to draw, you know, a cat that's moving around all the time. That must be really difficult. It's not like a model that sits quietly still for you all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why these are much more sort of haphazard and rushed in their appearance, because they're really just experimentation with how quickly and efficiently you can capture something through line and movement, whereas these are studies of colour and form.
Yeah. What is it? Never work with animals or children? But I mean, she's managed to capture cats really well here, isn't she?
She did both in her career.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
How much do we know about Gwen John's relationship to her cats and how she worked with them?
Well, we know that she had one particular cat that she got just after she moved to Paris, and she named that cat Edgar Quinet, even though it was a girl, because the name of the street she was living on at the time when she got the cat was Boulevard Edgar Quinet. And so that cat is probably this cat that we see in these images, because she describes the cat as being tiger striped on the back, but with a white front. So yeah, I think these are probably Edgar Quinet here. Yeah. She had a lot of other cats throughout her life, especially after she moved to the suburb of Meudon. She had a plot of land, which obviously makes it a lot easier to have cats, much to the chagrin of some of her neighbours, I think. And they're recurrent models throughout her work, throughout her lifetime. They appear in some of the oil paintings, and they appear here in her works on paper. And you can see they sort of they reflect different points of her artistic progression and her trying out different techniques.
These works are really interesting because they show a relationship between Gwen John's companions and her working life and her working world. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Gwen John had cats as pets throughout her life. Very famously, she had this tiger-striped cat called Edgar Quinet when she first moved to Paris. But she had cats later on as well after she moves to Meudon. And they're both companions, as you said. They're pets that she loves and cares for. But they also serve as models for her work, and they're actually really important to her artistic practice in that sense. She could very rarely afford to hire people as models when she was first living in Paris. She only sort of gets the means to do that later on in her artistic career. But the cat is always there for her as a model, right? And we see that she's using it for both these sort of movement, life-drawing sessions, and then when the cat is asleep or sitting still, she uses them more for experimenting with form and colour.
Well, as a big cat lover, it's been absolutely fantastic to see these, and thanks so much for bringing these out to show me today.
You're so welcome.
Mae'n amlwg bod gan Gwen John feddwl mawr o'i chathod, a mae wedi bod mor ddiddorol clywed gan Helena am yr effaith oedd gan yr anifeiliaid anwes yma ar ei bywyd, ond hefyd ar ei gwaith, a'r berthynas oedd hi wedi creu gyda nhw.